Hello. For this example, we have 1 plus the square root of x equals another square root of 2x plus 1. So we are trying to solve for x. That's the goal in this equation. So the first step that we have to do is that we need to make sure that one of the radicals, either this one or this one, it's by itself in one of the sides. As you might have noticed, we already have one radical that is already by itself, in this case in the right side. So we're good to go now. The next step is that we want to get rid of one of the radicals. The radical that is by itself, in this case this one, right? So what we're gonna do is that we want to do power to both sides. But what power is gonna be? Is it gonna be 2, 3, or 4? It will all depend on the index of the root. In this case, our index automatically is 2 because it's not given. So automatically we assume it's 2. So our power has to be the same as our index. In this case, our index is 2, so we're gonna power both sides to the power of 2. Okay, so let's start with the left side. Notice that we have two different terms to the power of 2 with a plus between them. So we have to expand this one. Okay, so we're gonna rewrite it as multiplying the same thing that is inside twice because we have power 2. So it is 1 plus square root of x times 1 plus square root of x equals the right side. Now notice here, same index, same power, cancel. So we are left with everything that is inside the root. In this case, 2x plus 1. Now we have to do a little bit of work here. We're gonna do FOIL. So let's start. 1, we're gonna multiply times 1. That gives us 1. This same 1 is gonna multiply now to the other term with the square root of x. So 1 times the square root of x, that gives us square root of x. Now we go to the second route. Square root of x times 1, the square root of x. And remember, right, everything is positive, so everything is positive here as well. And lastly, we have square root of x times square root of x. We are multiplying the same thing twice. So we could rewrite it as square root of x to the power of 2. And let's bring everything else down from the right side. So let's combine like terms and get rid of this power 2 here. So we are left with 1. We have like terms here, so I have 1 and 2 of those. So I'm going to have 2 square root of x. Plus, notice here, same thing that happened earlier here. Same index, same power, boom, gone. We are left with everything inside, which is just x, equals 2x plus 1. Now notice, we have an equation with only one square root. At the beginning, we had not one but 2 square roots. Now we have only 1. So let's work it out in order to leave it by itself in this side because it's positive, so that's a good strategy. So let's move everything else to the other side. Okay, so let's move the 1 and let's move the x. Okay, let's start with moving the 1, so it's positive, so when we move it to the other side, it's gonna be the opposite sign, meaning negative. Now let's move the x. This x is positive, so when we move it, it's gonna be negative, and it's going to combine with these 2x here, like terms, okay? This 1 and this negative 1 are like terms, so they will combine. So moving things around, this 1 and this negative 1 will cancel. This x with this negative x cancel, so in the left side, we are left with the 2 and the square root of x equals. Now let's combine like terms here. Notice here we have 1 and negative 1, boom, also gone. Now we have 2x minus x, that leaves us with 1x, or simply x. Now let's get rid of this radical here. So our index automatically is 2, so that means that we're going to power both sides to the power of 2 again. Okay, so, but in this time, notice that we have a number in front of our radical. That means that this 2 also has the power 2, and the radical also has the power 2. So that means that this power 2 is for both of them, for the radical and also for the number in front of the radical. So 2 power 2, that leaves us with 4, and this index with this power cancels, and we are left with everything inside the radical, which is simply x. So notice that this 2 is multiplying the radical. So whatever comes out of the radical is also going to multiply the 2 power 2, which is 4. So that becomes 4x equals x power 2. Now we have a quadratic equation. Remember from the previous examples that in order to solve a quadratic equation, we have to bring everything into one side. One strategy that we could use is that we want the x squared to remain positive, okay? That means we're going to move the 4x onto the other side. So automatically it's positive, so when we move it, it's going to be negative, okay? So that means that we have 0 equals x squared minus 4x. Now we have a quadratic equation without our extra value here. So what we can do here, we could factor out our common term. In this case, we have x squared and x to the power 1. When you factor the x, you want to factor the x with the smallest exponent. In this case, it's x1, so just x. So factor out. So notice this one has 1 and 4, so there's not really a common factor between them. So the only common factor is x. So we're going to factor x. Now, to go from x to x squared, we need to multiply by x. We have a minus here, so bring the minus. Now, to go from x to 4x, we are missing, or we have to multiply by 4. Now we have our two factors, x and x minus 4. The next step is that we want to set each factor equal to 0, right? And solve for x. Notice that our first factor is already solved, so x equals 0. And then we have x minus 4 equal to 0. Solving for x, we're going to have, so all we have to do is to move this negative 4 to the other side. So we ended up with x equals 4. So we have our two solutions. But notice that for this type of equations involving radicals, we have to make sure that these are the right solution. Sometimes it's only one of them, sometimes it's both of them, and rarely none of them are the correct answer. So let's check which one is or are our solutions. So let's go to the checking step, our last step, okay? So let's do some checking. Let's start with x equals 0, okay? And we're going to use the original problem. In this case, let me copy the problem. So now we're gonna plug in 0 into every x. We're going to see if the left side is equal to the right side after substituting x for 0. So let's do it. So we have 1 plus square root of 0 equals square root of 2 times 0 plus 1. The square root of 0 is automatically 0 plus 1, we are left with 1. Now let's see if this side is also 1. Notice we have 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1, we have a square root of 1. And 1 equals, the square root of 1 is 1, so it checks. So that means that x is one of the solutions, at least one of the solutions. Let's check x equals 4 now, okay? Let's rewrite the equation. Now we're gonna plug in 4 now. 1 plus the square root of 4 equals square root of 2 times 4 plus 1. Notice that all of this is inside of the radical. So we have 1 plus the square root of 4, as you might know is 2, equals, let's do the inside part first, 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 give us 9. And 1 plus 2 is 3. Now, the square root of 9, it's also 3, right? So it checks out. So our other solution is x equals 4. So both solutions checks out. So for this example, our two solutions are x equals 0 and x equals 4.